Welcome, everyone. Let's do a quick roll call here, and just the benefit of everybody who may or may not be in the room. I'm Doug Anderson.
Sandy Kaufman, Brenda. Kim Johnson.
Eric Quinney, Chris Bulger, Ben Olds.
And you folks that are spectating, is that the right word for it?
Justin Rasmussen,
Justin Rasmussen.
Jamie Gill.
Dave Espinoza, Clark Crowder, sorry, Mayor.
Jeremy Heights.
Clark and Jeremy and Mayor, we recognize you. Thank you.
Clark, are you a detective?
Yes.
Okay. I see you have the weapons, but just not the uniform, so I was curious.
Yeah, I'm undercover.
Not very far.
Then you need to ride with me.
Okay, all right. We will start with an invocation and a thought and a pledge of allegiance. And invocation will be by Chris Pulver. Remember your name right.
Okay. Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful day and all that you provide for us. So appreciate it, and also that living in this great city that we can look through things and understand how things work, and that we can make right decisions and recommendations. And I say these things in Jesus Christ.
Amen. And I have prepared a thought. It was short, sweet, and to the point. And I'm going to hold it up here for those not in the room to see. The thought is, it all adds up. Like that, it all adds up. There's the thought. Pledge of allegiance, I didn't ask anyone, let's see, you had the last one, I think. How about Quinny, would you mind leading us in a pledge?
Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for taking that on the spot. Okay, we have an agenda. Thank you to, I guess, Susan Vance. You want to put that on, and John, thank you to you. A couple of things that are not technically on the agenda, but I think we need to cover them. Sandy made a request a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, about were there any emails received, right?
Right.
And last week, Randy reported that there had been no emails received. And he's not here today. Does anybody know if any emails have been received?
How is it advertised that we are accepting emails and questions that we're willing to answer?
I saw an announcement in the North Ogden Connection magazine like a couple, 3 months ago. I don't know if it's been out since. Do any of you, Jamie or John, know the answer to that?
I think it's in every edition that we've sent out since. I believe.
Okay. I would think that if Randy had received any, we would have known. So that's done. Are there any actions from last week's meeting that we need to follow up on? I know I wasn't here, but I did listen and watch the entire meeting, which was very interesting. Anybody have anything that they want to bring up from last week?
Just that Dave did an exceptional job and his team.
Okay.
I can't remember. Is it Susan? Susan came up to me, I believe, after the city council meeting, and she was talking to me about the question that I think it was Chris that asked of whether we do mail-in ballots or machines. Do you know anything about that?
Yes.
Tell me it really wasn't possible, but I just.
So Susan got back to me. She said if we were to buy our own machines for security purposes, they're about $10,000 a machine. And the Lieutenant Governor's office has strongly encouraged all cities to utilize the counties because of the security and other implications. And then Susan did also mention that there may be as many as 3 people on the elections this year for the general election, meaning 3 groups, which means that we would then divide that 27,000 into 3 pieces. But if we end up in a primary and the other groups don't have a primary, we would still pay the 27 for the primary portion. So it could be as cheap as 36 or as expensive as the 54, depending on what the other groups are doing. I know the fire district last time, for example, they had an election, but they didn't have enough people run to actually hold an election. They just had enough people to run to fill the seats. So they just awarded them the seats and didn't have an election. So if they do that again, then we would lose them as splitting costs with us. But I believe there's one other, she didn't tell me which group it was that might be doing an election this year.
Thank you.
Okay. And I have a question to ask of the group here. Last week, you had an after the meeting after the city council meeting to just kind of, instead of that in-between meeting that I had suggested the week before. And I don't recall a decision. I don't remember hearing one in the meeting of whether we were going to try and do that again today or try to do that in between meetings. Anybody?
It's much more convenient to do it here. On the day we're here, trying to make it to an additional meeting. I can make time for this. I can't guarantee I can make time for that. So.
Okay.
And I think people also said that there wasn't enough to discuss to warrant that in
An extra trip.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll continue with just having it after this meeting. Just so review. Okay, thank you. Decision done and noted. Thank you. And in an email a couple, 3 days ago, I asked if everybody would start collecting their ideas for cost savings. I know that's the purpose of this entire group, is to come up with suggestions for cost savings. I don't know if anybody else has done that, but it's not mandatory. I just said we need to start collecting them. And I have a sheet of ideas. I do not intend to go over it now. I couldn't go over it in our after meeting, because I know these folks need to get the show on the road. But just let you know that we do need to, because our time is growing short. What is it, John, the first city council meeting in May, the council is required to have their tentative budget. Not allowed to go home until I pass it.
Correct. Yep.
Remind me to not have a run for city. Okay,
But then they still have through the end of June to pass the final budget.
so our time is not up, but it's just, we don't have to. Okay. Thank you. All right, unless there's anything else, is there anything else before we turn the time over to the police department to?
I just have one, as a quick thing, was from a meeting that I missed at one time, was personal use of vehicles for the city. I think I never really said at the end, but from all the stuff I heard, liability, not really that much cost savings, blah, 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 that that was a no, that they don't do that.
That is my recollection of it. Where the vehicles are being leased now or
Almost a net
purchased, that
zero,
they're
yeah.
going to continue doing it for those exact reasons.
Okay.
Any other input on that? By the way, thank you. Welcome, Clark. We went through roll call.
Sorry.
Okay, am I correct in thinking that you will be the presenter for the police?
Probably for most of it. Jamie might chime in once in a while. The LTs might also, if I ask.
Unless there's anything else. Chief Quinny, is that the proper title?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Calls work.
Sun cheers.
So, how do you want, you just want to go through this line by line? Just explanation for the. that's it. Okay. And any
I'm gonna
questions?
say the format is up to you. Are we free to ask questions as we go along?
Absolutely. So the first account there is beer tax wages. What that is it's a refund back from the state liquor taxes. So any alcohol that's sold in the city, the tax, some of the taxes that are come back for enforcement purposes. So those that there, we'll break that up into two, and we'll see the other one lower. Wages and equipment. So wages is just what it is, overtime wages for officers to come out and enforce alcohol and drug offenses. So that expense is 100% funded by your tax. The one below it, highway safety wages, is another state funded expense. Those are also overtime wages that are paid to officers to come out and enforce specifically DUI. That's it. There's also seatbelt and pedestrian enforcement. And then once in a while, we'll see a distracted driver. Where they'll ask us to go out and do blitzes on distracted drivers, texting them, doing other things by the drive.
So Chief, did you say those are overtime, both of those?
Yes.
Okay.
So they're paid at time and a half, but it's 100% money that comes from the state. The next account there is uniform allowance. That's an allowance that's provided to the officers for not only what they wear, but the equipment that they wear and the upkeep. That's dry cleaning or whatever else repair for. I mean, that's everything they want on their belt, on their vest, boots, their gloves, their hats. Basically, that amount there comes out to $100 a month per officer. And just so you know, one pair of pants and shirt that these guys wear is somewhere in the neighborhood of $160, $180.
I was like, Boy Scouts, yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a question on that.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. You have number 23 add-on officer with the star next to it.
So
The whole
that,
thing.
that was if officer number 23 was going to be added this year, and that's been removed. It's blank. It doesn't have a dollar.
Right.
So you're
Right.
not requesting a 23rd officer.
Well, we did, but it's been removed.
The amount.
Okay,
okay.
But the little placeholder is still there. The blank.
There's a couple accounts in there that have a line item for that number 23.
Okay,
Kept it in.
okay.
Anything else?
So, well, I just add to that, as we go down, that's what the stars mean then.
The stars are kind of just reminders for me that there might be an explanation or something that's more to it, than that's just
Okay,
a routine line item.
okay,
And 4 stars
Thank
means
you.
really, really?
really important.
As an explanation?
Okay, subscriptions and memberships, just what it says. The biggest dollar item in that is our policy manual. We actually have a firm that keeps our policy up to date, which it would cost us a full-time employee to do that. Every time a new case law comes out, and every legislative session every year, our policy gets changed to match whatever the new legislation is in case law, best practice. Our policy manual is probably not that.
In paper. So
Oh, sorry. I just had another question on that. It has Utah Chiefs of Police 3. So you have 3, and that's like checks and balances. If you're not here, somebody's there to follow through.
That's just a
or-
resource. And so myself and the 2 lieutenants are members of that association.
Okay,
Conferences, there's 2 conferences every year, and then play a big part in the legislative. all kinds of benefits. that come with that.
Okay, thank you.
This policy manual, the updates, you say it's like that, which I understand. Does somebody like take out the obsolete document, whatever it is, and put in the new one? Is that how that does?
Lieutenant Hines actually, he administers our policy manual, and when we get updates from Lexipol, they send them to us digitally. Our policy manual is digital, so it's pretty easy to put the update in. They send us the new one. Review it, if we need to make changes based off of, local practices or whatever. We have a chance to do that, and then, we pull the old policy and insert it.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Public notices, basically just to post advertisement. Anytime we do evidence destruction, we have to put post notices. That 500 just covers that yearly annual expense. Travel and training, we're required to keep our certification. Every officer has to have a minimum of 40 hours of training every year. And that doesn't even come close to what we actually get because of required training. So we have de-escalation, use of force training, firearms training, taser training, recertifications, radar, intoxilizer. You start adding it up, and it's probably closer to about 80 hours that each officer gets every year. Some more, some less. Our K-9 officer, he's probably in the neighborhood of 300 hours a year. Some of them are instructors, also quite a few hours to keep their certification. So, but training's not cheap. It's definitely not free. So it used to be a lot cheaper because the state used to provide a lot of our training, and with everybody's budgets being cut, that went away, and now private entities are providing a lot of our training. So that $18,000 covers basically that to keep our officers certified.
What's the total personnel? So you have 22 officers, and
We
is
have,
that everybody, or there's additional?
we have 22 sworn officers and 6 civilian staff.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Any questions?
And just real quick on the subscriptions membership, what was the $750 increase?
Can you go back up, John?
I'm sorry, I should have asked that earlier.
Lexipol, I know went up a bit, and I think most of it's probably from the Lexipol.
And what was that again?
That's our policy manual.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Count 240 office expense, that's exactly what it says, paper clips, paper, pens, anything we need to basically do both in the office and out in the field. So anything the officers need out there to do their job, citations, in-car printers, out in the car, it's all come from that. Postage, it is what it is, 800. That's just in case we need to know something, we can buy a stamp. Motor pool, I'm not sure how to cover that in this one. We'll cover it in the actual motor pool budget. Services is mostly software. Our connection with dispatch is the first one there, NAPS. Our dispatch center is in the Ogden Police Department building, and that is for our connection with them. And then Comcast cable and our internet service. NetMotion is basically our officers out in the field. They have to go through a secure server to get to mostly, you see just BCI state databases and things like that. They can't do it just over the generic internet that everybody else does. So that NetMotion is our connectivity. We go through South Ogden. They have the secure server there that we go through. and they just share the expense with a couple other agencies. Speed trailer, I'm sure everybody's seen our trailers out and about. It's just the speed display trailer. But they're ran off software, and that's the software that helps. They generate its reports and its connectivity.
Question on that?
Uh-huh.
Excuse me. Do you find do you move them all over? Do you find that makes a difference in the speeding?
It helps, it spits out a report that kind of gives us some data
Oh,
that
really?
helps us determine
Oh, I
that.
did not know that.
It says, this is the percentage of vehicles that we believe this trailer affected, which means they slowed down.
Mhm.
So it's about 50-50. And the
Okay.
50% that don't slow down probably are pretty close to the speed limit anyway. The 50% that do, most of them are probably close to the speed limit anyway, but just slow down because that's what you do when you see a car.
Makes you nervous, right?
Yeah, and we put it out when it's requested.
Mhm.
If it's requested, we'll put it specific places. If it's not, we'll just put it places where we think it'll be helpful for the day.
The trailers, we were just talking about the software for those, about the trailers themselves, are you gonna cover that somewhere else? Or is it-
They were paid for with grant. They were purchased outright with grant. And so but there's probably some annual
Maybe a
maintenance.
little maintenance, but
Yeah, but, and that's in just a generic maintenance account.
not that we need to know this, but how much does one of those trailers cost? Or did-
About 7,000?
9, that new one was 9.
Is it it's battery powered, gas powered? How does it?
So they have a solar panel that
Solar.
keeps the battery.
It's just a solar type thing. Oh, okay, thank you. Carry on.
Our Office 365, that's just our office suite. Tech storage, it's if we need our IT people more than what we contract. Once in a while, we have some failures and we need to bring them on more than what they're contracted for, and that's to cover that over. Our in-car camera licenses, that per camera, we have a specific fee that we have to pay to keep the cameras connected to the software, and the software connected to the servers. And then that final one with the star, that's the Live 911. I'm not sure if you all heard of that, but what that is if when the 911 call comes in, the dispatch. Normally how it works, the dispatch picks up the phone, gives the information, types it into the CAD systems. And it's another dispatcher who is actually on the radio with officers relays that. There's sometimes up to 60, 90 second delay from the time the 911 call comes in. And this dispatcher is on the radio telling the officer where to go. So the 911, what it does is when that phone rings dispatch, it rings in the officer's car at the same time on the computer. And when the dispatcher picks up the call and is getting the emergency, the officer's hearing it at the same time. You get a 60 to 90 second jump start to get. We have, the sheriff's office has this. We've had it for a few months. And I know there's one case. Where officer heard a 911 call from there. It was a medical emergency. It was at the rec center. He was an 11-year-old boy, cardiac arrest, fell over. No RV, no rating. That officer was close enough within the 60, 90 seconds. He was there before that was He was doing CPR. He was the AED. Probably resuscitated. 60 to 90 seconds is a long time and so on. This is something new. This is what we put that in for this year.
Is that something that's in each police car?
So this pays for 4 licenses. Those licenses, when an officer goes off duty, frees up the license, next one comes on duty.
So it rotates through
It's a
the.
flowing license.
And they're included in the 5,000 as a one-time fee to get it set up. And annually, it's about 4,000 for 4 licenses. Equipment maintenance, this is where if the trailer needed some work, or speed trailer, this budget would cover that. Any of our equipment anything goes down, our radar units, the equipment, cars, detail. Really, it could be anything. It needs to be fixed. This is what we think. Next one, telephone. So this covers our landline and our cells. And it also covers the air cards for the officers out in the field. Their hotspots for their internet connections. That covers our monthly fees plus equipment.
What is the 4 stars for?
I don't know. I think Jamie. Honestly, I don't know.
I just thought it wasn't something must be really
See if you were
important.
paying attention. So are these telephones, I know we had other departments that had telephones. Is this a separate contract or is it like the same for all the city?
Same carrier, separate contract. So each department has their own, so that, because they all manage their own. So, turnover, if they need specific needs or whatnot. Each department has their own person that's in charge of it.
Why do the officers have cell phones when they have radios?
So you can't talk to a citizen over the radio. So that's
Gotcha.
all to handle a call for service. And 30-40% of the calls for service are done over the phone. And anything done on a cell phone is susceptible to subpoenas. So we won't ask them to use their personal phones.
So the radios are more reserved for just interdepartmental communication
Dispatched officer and officer to officer.
between officers.
Quick question on the new building. I assume that all of the infrastructure, new phone, blah, 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 are covered in that and don't need to be put in this.
This will just carry over the new building.
Okay, so everything else paid for.
Yep. Donations is, we have people come in and hand us whatever amount of money for whatever, or if it's a child that saved his birthday money and wanted to do something for the police department, who knows, but if like we just paid for a drone out of this.
Or you did get the drone?
Mhm. People come in and want to donate to bulletproof vests. It varies, but that's what this is. Investigations is first item there is cover special investigation. Once in a while, a case comes up, something comes up where we need to either purchase some equipment, some software, or have something analyzed, sent to the lab, and it's not specifically accounted for anywhere else. This is just when something like that comes up. And $500, we typically stayed within that budget pretty easily. So it's just kind of just in case. And then our flock LPR system, that 30,000 is for that renewal of that contract next year.
Is that's just for the contract? That's not any of the cameras, anything else, just the,
Just a
The
subscription,
service.
yes.
okay,
But the cameras are included in the subscription.
Yeah,
okay.
so
But
yeah,
not by
that
you.
covers every cost surrounding the LPR system.
So if they're vandalized, they come in and replace them, and, okay.
I heard you say renewal. That indicates this was already, no, they said 10 cameras in place, but they're kind of on a trial thing. We haven't really bought into this yet.
And so this is
This
the
is-
request for it to be ongoing?
So we haven't actually spent anything yet.
Well, we paid for this year.
This year, meaning the 2022 to 23 fiscal year. That's the 10 camera. 2,600 piece. Is that recall?
Oh,
2,500.
Tax license and do. Okay, so we already paid and this is for the next year. Got it.
So that's gonna be a 30 every year.
Yep, every year.
And Just curious, the tax raise or the increase of property taxes is gonna be going toward this, is that right? Paying for this?
Towards,
What increase
doesn't
in
pay
property
towards
tax?
all police?
Well, increase in property taxes that we've got. This is why we had truth and taxation. This is why we're doing this committee. I just want to make sure that the money that's coming from the increase in the property taxes is going to pay for this. Is that right?
Pay for what?
For safety.
I'm confused, but what increase in property taxes are you talking about? Last year's?
Yes. More money in the budget that we're putting on for.
Right, yeah, it covers all of the police. If you look at the police budget, property taxes covers about 53% of what our police department covers.
Okay.
So yeah, every penny of the increase in property taxes went to the police department.
Part of that.
Right, yeah.
The next line there to in the investigations is the pond database. That's just annual fee we have to pay to have access to that. Anytime anybody were sold at a secondhand store, or pawn shop, entered into this database, we can look at the store. Valuable, it's pretty inexpensive for
Mhm.
And then new employees, when we do background investigations, there's some money there to help fund that. The forensic services, that is our countywide crime scene investigations team. Every agency in the county pays a portion of that annual expense to cover that team. And that's North Ogden's percentage.
Based on population or?
Population and calls.
Call history?
Call volume.
Okay,
Yeah, so the formula has both
okay.
population and how much we use them.
So that's one thing that concerns me in some of these things. There's no, like, you just looking at history wise, I mean, some of these things have been flat for years. That's just gonna grow. There's no way that you're gonna say that's gonna level off at that, because that's Weaver County telling you what they want to charge you, right? So-
Yeah, well, Weaver County administers it. We own it. I mean, it's our team. But what your increases are, they're attributed to the account for personnel, probably more than anything. Cost of vehicles that go out every year. The tools that they use, I mean, it's just like everything.
Yeah, but
It will continue.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, for stuff that's either outside the agency or something else that you're funding or help, pooling together kind of thing, that's an expense that I don't think. But it's one of those things that you just will note that it does. And I guess that's the one thing that future wise, and I guess that's something that, Jamie, I don't know if that's something that you're looking at year to year or something that says, holy crap, we're gonna, any jump in, because that's the personnel thing, it's the hard part to plan for, because you have no idea what the benefits are gonna increase year to year. But, I mean, for stuff like this, and then you see a trend, well, you have a 2-year trend, maybe 2-3-year trend. Are you tracking that to see, when there has to be an increase? Because there's some things that you can't control, and that's one of them. And that's the thing that I worry about, is stuff you can't control, trash fee stuff like that.
We don't control the call volume either based on for this number either.
Right.
I mean,
Or the population.
right?
I'll just tell you that what we get for that amount, that 45,000, costs the city probably over 200,000.
Oh, no, I'm not trying to, all I'm saying is that number is not gonna go down, it's not gonna something that we can cost save. That's just,
Yeah.
Just is what it is, right?
you're embracing the suck of that, so you just, it is what it is. Yeah.
Question?
Yeah.
Is that like a specific group of 5 or 6 men that just go wherever in the county to do the CSI? Or I know with some things, like you have an officer that works here but does, say, SWAT or something on the side. How does this work? Is that just a specific crew?
Yeah, this team is non-sworn. They have education and training in crime scene processing and evidence processing. They do gunshot, they do blood spatter. You talk about.
Bones, right?
You've all seen, yeah, really?
Okay.
You've seen the show,
Mhm.
CSI?
Mhm.
They came and visited Weaver County CSI to get knowledge to make their show. We have one of the best CSI groups.
So this is a shared service among the different cities.
And it makes or breaks cases. Absolutely.
So this that the city contributes goes towards paying their salary, their supplies, their cost of the cars, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, thank you.
So this is this like a check that's sent to the county? And then, so it's lagging, right? So this is, we're paying for last year's bill or whatever. I mean, how do they know what to project, how much you're using?
So they just
Not
did their
counting
budget,
year.
right?
Okay.
January 1 was the beginning of their fiscal year, or not fiscal year, but their. So they take the amount of what they did for the CSI on the year 2023. and use that number with the agencies.
You have a formula based on how many cases they did in your city versus the county versus how many people they have. Put in the calculator and come up with $48,572.
Good, so we're down to other school.
Okay. Traffic school is non-existent anymore. We used to do traffic school in person. And we had officers that would instruct us, teach the school. It's now online. So we just, that's an account.
When did that happen? Recently or?
When COVID came around,
Okay.
it was all of a sudden nothing in person. So
Right.
they went out and found some online schools that, so. Youth court, that's our tri-city youth court. So Pleasant View, Harrisville, and North Ogden send some juvenile offenders to this court, which we administer. We have a hold it right here in this room. These are for like status offenses that lower like smoking, vaping, alcohol use, things like that. And everything that we spend on youth court is paid for by youth court. So every juvenile that's referred has a fee, and basically they're paying to keep their case out of juvenile court. You get a much better experience in it. So, but any expense we have related to youth court paid for.
So this $1,800 expense, there's in the income half of the process, there's an $1,800 income that balances us out. Which just shows the outgo.
You find that successful?
Very.
Chief, is this the court that they also have high school age kids a part of? So they're the judge, jury, whatever. Okay, so it's youth, judging youth, so to say. Okay.
Yeah, it's really neat to watch because it's junior high and high school age.
Yeah.
And there's about 6 of them that are on the panel of judges. And for these offenders to come and face their peers.
Yeah.
You see it in their face. It's not fun. Yeah, it's a good program. Our K-9 budget is $1,000 a year, and that basically just covers food, vet bills, anything that comes up, equipment life issues.
How many dogs do we have here? One.
Yeah,
And we don't share it with anybody, it's just ours.
yeah, it's just that. We'll take it to neighboring agencies if they need help from the K-9. And we've got, she's available. Run around.
If anybody knows about those type of dogs, it's very effective. You've gone through training on the other side. Yeah. Being blindfolded and get a dog barking at it. Very compliant.
Great tool. Our strike force and SWAT, that's another county-wide team. That's our narcotics strike force and the SWAT team.
But don't you have somebody on your force that's part of the strike force?
One every 6 years, every 4 years. So South Ogden and Riverdale, North Ogden, all rotate and putting the body in. And we're in our off year right now. So. Oh, if we had contributed the body, that $22,000 would go to zero,
Oh, okay.
but we lose a body, so.
Full-time person.
For 2 years. Department supplies, just go through those. That's our handgun, rifle, ammunition, badges, awards, radio batteries, any of our evidence, narcotic test, evidence packaging, gloves. Scroll down that, John.
Did you get deals for some of the ammo? I mean, from dealers or whoever? I know there's some.
Yeah, we actually go through a place called Salt Lake Wholesale, and the price we get as a law enforcement agency, you can't beat. There's no, I mean, we get people all come to us all the time and say, give me the best deal, and they just can't touch it. Even if we went there personally, our price is still higher. It's basically, they're not making anything on.
Sorry, standard rounds, or, I mean, is it, everybody have a different gun, or is it all a certain, do they have a preference, or is there, I guess?
So we carry, the department decides the ammo,
And then you get to,
and we practice with full metal, all ammo, which is fairly inexpensive, and then we carry a different round for duty.
Okay, I got another question. So how often are you guys required to, or how often do you require officers to train outside of just qualifying? Or is there a set amount or just?
So our requirement is one nighttime shoot, one daytime shoot with handgun, and then one rifle shoot.
For qualifying or for, okay. But then
For training, and then
Okay.
qualification is once a year.
So we shoot 3 times a year.
Okay.
So we'll do, and each one of these has training and qualifies. So we'll have training at nighttime plus a handgun qualification.
Mhm.
We'll do handgun training during the day and handgun qualification. Then we'll do rifle training and qualify, shotgun less lethal beanbag training and qualify, and also another handgun training. And qualify 3 times.
Okay.
So we're shooting at least minimum 3 times a year, handgun, rifle, shotgun, at least once. But like, we got to shoot actually next week. It's our day qual for our handguns. But our instructors are incorporating more rifle training. So we just mix it out. There's policy, just like the chief said, minimum 1 day time, 1 night time, but we have never met the minimum and quite a bit more than.
but you said ammo, so you don't provide any weapons.
Yes, we provide.
Oh, okay.
I'm just curious, like outside of these opportunities, or is there more training involved or wired? It's on their own. It's on their own, okay. All right.
LT used to be our range master for what, 12 years?
We're like 18.
18 years.
Like the Weaver County Shooting Complex or?
Yeah, like when they first opened that, I was.
Okay, next account is Homeland Security. That account came about after 9/11. And basically it was because everybody found themselves in a pickle. They had needs suddenly, but were we're scrambling to fill those needs. So that's just kind of a contingency fund, again. If there anything ever comes up and we find ourselves ill-equipped or ill-trained or whatever, it's something that we can help get right on it and not have to wait for an act of our legislative body. Give us the green light. They're usually actually pretty quick, yeah. This is just in case. Our service is not classified. That pays for kind of our employee incentives. Any special events we have, birthdays, retirements, department meetings, we want to buy a snack and a drink for everybody. We have a summer party. Any of our PR events where we want to have handouts. Hand out stickers or whatever. That just covers me those. Small equipment that mostly is computers. Also includes our tasers. And tasers are rotated out every 5 years. They are a piece of computerized equipment that become obsolete, and we all know how computers don't like to age. So we rotate those out every 5 years. You scroll down a little, John.
So that's 5 per year, and you just on a rotating
Yep.
basis. Is that the same with the laptops too? You're just replacing so many every year?
So it's laptops are on a 4-year rotation, desktops are on a 5. And tasers are on a 5, or is it a 4?
4 because of the warranty.
I included in this a second drone for next year. We have 3 pilots. 2 drones would probably be, we would find ourselves needing 2 drones more than we would think. So anyway, we just paid for 1 with donations. This is for a second one, and we have 3 pilots.
Who are the pilots? Sworn officers or are they civilians?
Sworn officers. We have a detective and 2 patrol officers.
Certain people that are trained.
Certified.
Yeah, they have to be certified.
Because there's FAA type compliance.
Just curious, what's the brand of the drone?
DJI,
Is it China?
I understand.
Okay.
They are, but they are the go-to in this budget. Range.
So look up your personal cell phone to them. Just a second.
What, once the drones are bought, what will the yearly cost be?
So there is a software fee. It's about 600 a year, 800
Each or for both?
each. And that software is required. FAA can require it. Our prosecutors require it. It just helps. Because whatever they collect is potentially evident. And also make sure we're not breaking the privacy concerns are covered.
So sell us on drones and why you need something.
So we've, the last 12 months, you could fill in any, we've had a fugitive that was in somebody's backyard. In the middle of the night. We just have infrared cameras on it, and this drone found this fugitive in a matter of seconds. We had him isolated to a couple blocks, and heat sensors. He's hiding in somebody's backyard. It might have been one of yours, but you'll never know. We found 2 elderly folks with dementia, with memory, those things that have wandered off.
I'll get the hard springs, okay. I'm teasing.
Just last week, they were up checking on our flood situation. And helped us, know what the sources were and understand a little bit more what's going on with those.
The car chase where they all ran, wrecked the car.
Oh, yeah, some fugitives from where were they, Florida from?
Oh, yeah, over the country kind of thing.
have the drones out, helping us look, search junkyards, and I mean, this.
Mountainsides, hillsides,
Yes.
orchards.
So this is,
lot of.
and in my opinion, in a 12-month span, that's, and then there's probably a dozen more times we could have used them, but just we didn't have one to use. So we didn't feel like calling one for another jurisdiction. So all of those circumstances, those cases, where other agencies coming here to help us do that.
How many times do you think using the drone do you actually need to?
Every time
Because
we wouldn't pull it out unless we needed it.
I guess that's my question. How often would you use two, or would one sit in the box because you only need
Oh,
one?
I see what you're saying. Probably, probably half the time, like with the fugitive or the lost folks, we put 2 drones up. And double our effort.
Like, make it, the search happen faster.
Yeah, couple more ground, shorter amount of time.
On that car chase, there was 2 or 3 at the county, and whoever else had them, and there was several drones.
Oh, just so you know, this, one of our pilots has been out soliciting donations. He has another 2,500 to go to the second one already ready to go, so we're hoping to have enough just to cover the second donation. We'll just take that out all of it.
That probably would have been my next question. We got the first one by donation.
And
We're working
it
on
can
it.
make the difference between life and death for our officers. A few years ago, it was about 3 years ago, the one in Ogden, there was a nighttime shooting that occurred. And they were chasing the fugitive, and the drone found him. And the dispatch through the drone was able to tell the officers right where he was. Because he made it abundantly clear he was going to take anybody out. The guy ended up dying in the exchange, but he made it clear he was going to take any officer that tried to get him out if he could. And they were able to keep the officers back and bring them in strategically to neutralize the situation without an officer being killed, other than, officers with their flashlights in the dark. This drone knew right where he was sitting up there, and they just, he was in a carport, had jumped in the back of a truck, pulled a tarp over him. They knew right where he was, and if he had moved, the drone would have had him and been able to tell the officers where he was. It makes it. The other thing that we talked about when we were first talking about the drones is there's a lot of nationwide. There's a lot of officer time that's wasted when you get a call, like a nuisance call at our department. Right, there's somebody with music up. I don't know, 70% of the time, the officer gets there and they're gone. They've already left. Right, and if the officer is here and he can throw up the drone, crow flies, and he's there in 2 minutes, much faster than he could respond physically. And it's clear that they're gone. Okay, I can clear the call and we can move on to other things rather than wasting more time of driving all the way over there to find out nobody's there.
So do you always have a pilot on duty for the drone?
I wouldn't say we would always have a pilot on duty, but the way we spread it out, the detection, makes it work. Banker's hours, 2 patrol officers that might have the majority of weekends and nights covered.
There's coverage if need be. You can have something on overtime for an emergency case.
Yeah, we call out pilot.
Thank you.
Further down on the worksheet is the bulletproof vest grant. Here I have 1 bulletproof vest budgeted. That's just in case, because we provide the vests. And it's important that they fit right. If we have somebody retire or have some turnover for whatever reason and hire a new officer that one of our existing vests doesn't fit properly, then this is to cover that.
Do they have to be replaced on a rotation basis as well?
5 years. Then the next item there, the equipment for the add-on officer number 23, you see that's blank. So that expense has been taken out. Our body cameras, we were one of the first agencies to incorporate body cameras years ago. And we're still carrying the same body cameras. I mean, we've replaced them with, when they break, with the same body camera. The technology's better. Video quality is better in some of these more up-to-date devices. And there's also the in-car cameras we have. This company just recently started building body cameras as well. So what we're thinking is we incorporate the two. They work together. The evidence, the video is stored together, saved together. It's much more practical. And so we've kind of been on the bubble of updating our body cameras for a couple of years. Just this year, this grant became available. I've got 6,000 in there on the slide, but it's actually half of whatever our costs are. So we don't want to, we felt this is the perfect opportunity. If we need to upgrade our body cameras, let's do it while there's some grant money available.
So it's gonna be like 20,000.
Yeah, about 22,000 is what probably revenue we get from this grant.
And is that for every officer?
That would cover every officer. And that's a 6-year. So if a camera breaks, we get a new camera. We need to upgrade software, we upgrade software. That pays for a 6-year plan to keep working cameras on the officer.
So the data from those cameras, is it a memory card on the camera, on the officer, or is it sell data back to?
So these will work with our in-car camera system eventually as we upgrade software. And what it basically is a docking station in their car. When they pull a car in the parking lot, we've already got access point. This stuff automatically is uploaded
Okay,
to our digital.
so the device itself does have a memory card, and then when you dock it, it uploads it.
Two-way radio software upgrade, $50,000. There's no way around this. The state who actually runs the radio system put it out for bid to replace. They tried to upgrade all the towers, the repeaters. Put it out for bid, and it was previously, or right now, Motorola owns and runs those. L3 Harris won the bid. So entirely new system is being installed. Motorola radios won't be compatible. So we have two choices. We could do a software upgrade on our Motorola radios for $50,000. Or we can buy new L3 Harris radios that will be compatible. So to upgrade our current radios, $50,000. If we were to buy all new L3 Harris radios, would be closer to 90, 100,000. And our current radios are, they're not that old. We've replaced them anticipating this for the last 4 or 5 years. This is going to be our least expensive route. It's going to get us to where our radios go. That live 911, that since been taken out because we went over that previously in the beer tax expense. That's the other half of the beer tax. That's all covered by alcohol tax money that comes back from the state. And that equipment that we buy with it is all to enforce drug and alcohol. Also our DARE program. Victim advocate, that's her budget. She is funded, a percentage of what she does is funded by a grant. It's about 35–40%. She's just got money in there to for her office supplies and for her whatever she needs to support her victims. There's also an emergency fund in there in case she needs to shelter a victim. get a hotel room or something for a night. The Highway Safety Office DPS grant, that's ADF grant, that's something we put in for every year, and it's for additional equipment for DUI enforcement. And we typically get cameras with those, don't we? So we had not bought, taxpayers have not bought an in-car camera in 20 years. This grant and their tax grant, typically we get 2 or 3 cameras every year using those. They're about $6,000 each. The JAGWAT grant, that's federal money that comes through the state, and that's just for any law enforcement equipment that we feel we might need that year. Last year we did gun safes. So we bought every officer a handgun safe, so we can issue them a handgun. There's a safe to take home, keep your handgun. Things like that.
Because they had nothing before that?
Not that we provided. Some of them
Right,
may
yeah.
have done something on their own. Most of them probably did. Probably sat on a nightstand or in a drawer. Way to keep it secure. Home. Bulletproof vest grant, this, every bulletproof vest we bought, well, for a year is covered 50% by DOJ money, federal money. So with the number of vests we have, we replace about 4 a year when they expire after the 5th year. That's it, simple, piece of cake.
So quick on the small equipment stuff, everything reoccurring or just a bunch of non-recurring, drone, I would assume.
Most of that is, I wouldn't say it's the exact dollar amount or the exact number. Like we might have 6 laptops one year and 5 the next. We might have 3 desktops one year and 4 the next.
So, I mean, basically what I'm asking is, it's 52 turning into 131 for the rest of the.
It'll go back down to closer to those radios and a lot of cameras.
Good question for you. Is there a duplication under 1054, 450 and 700 for small equipment? I see under department supplies, less lethal equipment and munitions. Is that, what is that if it's not tasers, cartridges, car magazines? What is this less lethal equipment and munitions?
So that beanbag, tear gas round. And then shotguns, which is what we use to repel both those items.
Okay,
And so every year when we train, we use a couple of them. We don't shoot a lot of them in training because they're pricey. Those mostly replace those that we use in training.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the police budget? Councilman?
Leadership. These guys behind me. I gotta be careful.
Yep.
Police motor pool, you're gonna come back up at that time after community service?
You just want to flip to that? I mean,
I can do either one. Community service will be me as well.
oh,
Oh. Very on.
So community service is our CSO, community service officer. We used to have animal control and code enforcement. We felt we would be much more resourceful and could cover more of the week with enforcers. If we combined them and had a 2-man team, it worked out pretty well. They also didn't do our evidence, so they're our evidence technician. So travel and training, we've got it budgeted for them, 1 each to go to an animal control conference, 1 each to go to a code enforcement conference. because none of the rest of us are experts in animal control or code enforcement. This is where they get a lot of their current best practices, a lot of good training. Then for the associations, they have, pretty minimal dues to cover their association fees. They have a couple specific office supply items. Dog tags is the biggest expense that we issue to our dog licensees. And computer services, they also need to have their connectivity to the secure servers so that they have 2 of those net motion licenses that goes through South Ogden server. And then equipment maintenance, a lot of that is mainly for the shelter, our temporary shelter. So we have it over at our shops. We have a temporary animal shelter with a couple of kennels.
Oh,
Because most dogs we pick up, we get back to the owners, if not that day, within a couple days. And if we have any animal over 3 days, we just take them down to the Lee County shelter where they take.
you charge people for picking up their animals
There's a $50 impound, $50 impound.
regardless of the length of time, just like $50, and then after 3 days you get rid of it.
Was it $12 a day? $50 plus $12 a day. And on top of that, they can also be cited for
Negligent, something or other.
Telephone that covers their air card, cell phone. The Weaver County Animal Shelter, that's North Ogden's portion of the payment to run that facility. That was a joint venture that came about 15 years ago. And the old shelter was not sufficient. A number of the departments in the county, I think there's only 2 that don't utilize this shelter, but North Ogden went in on this agreement. So the bond payment on the building, $20,600 a year, and then the operations cost $25,000.
Says a note on the side, you can't see it, but it says that the costs are going up. Is that a true statement or is it didn't show it? But
Actually, that note's from last year.
Last year.
Just didn't change it. Sorry. But
I mean, it's a pass through, right? And,
that
It
bond
is what it
payment probably,
for that won't change.
it's a 20-year bond, I think. And we probably got 2 or 3 years left. Maybe more than that. Maybe more.
But operating costs could go up. They never go down.
Right. So that's related to personnel.
So is that fixed? I mean, if we send, 2 dogs or 20, it's still at $25K.
So they also have a formula that's based off how much we use it. And because we have this temporary shelter, we don't use it as much as some of the other agencies, city.
So does Weaver County also charge the owners? Like
They could collect
a
a fee.
fee? So this is above any fees they collect.
This is net. So if you were to take revenue and expenses, just like we're doing here, come up with what does it cost the municipality? So you take North Ogden's and Harrisville's and Twin Cities, all the agencies that contribute to their shelter, you take their operational cost dues, and add the revenue from fees and fines and boarding fees. Then you get your total revenue. So actually, what they collect reduces the amount of it. If I didn't plan that very well.
And so if North Ogden is underutilizing this, then at some point, do they say, well, you get a kickback, or we pay in as much, or how does that work? Is that at what point okay, you haven't used it now, we're gonna drop your price here for the next couple months or?
It's built into the formula. Yeah, so if the previous year, we reduced our use by 30%, we probably will see our operations costs go down, probably not 30%. but we will have some. Department supplies is basically what it is to pay for what they need to do their job, and catch poles and gloves and leashes covers a lot of that. And small equipment, not asking for anything for that department, small equipment wise this year.
Doug's gonna probably have a connection, but is there, I mean, there's always enough, or not enough people in this group, from what I understand, because most of the city council meetings, they say, well, we don't have enough people to go do this, or, hey, sidewalks aren't getting plowed, but we don't really have enough people that go look for it, so we have to be snitches, and to be honest, it's one of those things, I watched, a neighbor do it all winter long, throwing snow into the street, and I know that's, it's not correct, and that's on the books that you shouldn't do that,
Yeah.
and so it's one of those things that, I finally, yes, called it in, and they showed up and blah, blah, blah. What did you do the next day? So it's like, how do you, it's one of those things that, I don't know. Well, I know that, summer coming up, there's so much other stuff that always happens. It's on the books, but
You're talking about the code enforcement part?
yeah.
I'll just tell you, this is my perspective. So code enforcement is like 95% of our state laws. We're out there enforcing 5% of it.
Mhm.
The other 95%, we're almost 100% counted on compliance.
Meaning
People just
people
look
do it
for-
themselves.
Yeah, it's just, you just do it because you should, right?
Or snitches, anyway.
Yeah.
But I guess to the point, and there's a lot of other things too. It's not just, you get arrested for it, but it's just other things. And I guess if you do hire 2 people, if you do, what's the payoff for, really it's just, I'm trying to, I'm just trying to understand the true. It's something that I know planning and planning commission struggle with, because it's like you put another ordinance on the books. It's actually gonna enforce, and how do you enforce it and stuff like that. And I think that's the same thing here. As I see stuff that is on the books, and you can't do it, everybody's doing it, It's like,
Well, I mean, the council on behalf of their constituents probably has to do the cost and
analysis,
benefits
yeah.
analysis. The cost for an employee is a lot more than just salaries and benefits.
Mhm.
And does that cost justify 40 or 50 code violations that you might get for bond?
At least that, per my wife, you could probably pay for 2 or 3 people just for the amount of.
Yeah, if you ask me, I said, give me code enforcement, and I can have somebody 24/7. Sure, why not? We'd love to do our job better, but is the cost
Effective, yeah.
worth the benefit?
Okay.
Is the benefit worth
The
the
juice worth the squeeze, right? So. Go ahead. All right. Enough on.
Can I answer a little bit what I learned on that? I believe it was a city council meeting. The majority of code enforcement is reported from neighbors, because we don't have enough code enforcement, and I don't know in a city our size how many code enforcement officers it would take to drive the whole city every day to see who's breaking code enforcement. I know I've been called on because I have a walking path in front of my house and we parked a car in front of it, and we have a neighbor that doesn't like us. And so as soon as that car was there, I tell you, within 5 minutes, we had a police officer saying, you got to move that car.
Because the neighbor snitched on me.
Yeah, yeah, but that's my understanding. And honestly, I've had to do the same thing with animal control and stuff is because of where my yard sits in the backyard, somebody driving by doesn't know that there's a dog locked in a shed barking for 2 weeks. So my explanation for that is that most of it is done through neighbors having to call and report. Because there's just not really a possibility for enough code enforcement or police officers to be throughout the city where they need to watch that.
Well, and not to minimize how anybody feels about any certain code, but we have to prioritize. When they do have downtime and we ask them, go out and, find something. They do. But they might drive by, drive by 12 or 15 violations. But I'll just tell you this, I could probably come to any one of your houses right now and find a code violation.
I'm sure.
Okay, but they drive by 12 or 15 of those to get to the ones that might be considered a higher priority. And the neighbors of those 12 or 15, they just drove by, are frustrated because maybe they have to look at that particular code violation every day and wonder why they just drove by and didn't do anything about it. It's all about priority, and it comes back down to we just rely on it. Reality, I guess. All right, that's a whole nother meeting.
Are you done with this section?
I think we are done with.
So I had a question. This temporary shelter for stray dogs, that thing, where is that in here? I know you talked about it. There's the Weaver County Animal Shelter, which is different, right?
Oh, so the cost of that, there is no related cost to my budget. Other than the upkeep. So it's my understanding Dominion.
So there's a little bit under equipment maintenance, but that's it.
Gary talking about like utilities and things. So that's
thought
under
you-
a different department.
No.
The building itself,
I think you
we own
mentioned,
it.
like 10 minutes ago, there's a temporary shelter for dogs, and if there were more than 3 days, you take them to the county, right? Which is this time.
It's
Where-
equipment.
1057, 260, there's 150 for equipment upkeep, temp shelter.
Oh, that's it right there, tension. Thank you.
And that's just to clean it and spray it out.
Okay.
We actually own the building. It's an asset of the city that owns.
Where is it at?
It's just adjacent to the public works,
Okay.
right underneath that break room.
Barking dogs in the break room.
Maybe they share your snack.
Okay. Thank you. I got a cost savings idea, but I'll write it down. It's not take time. Thank you.
Motor pool, Jamie, maybe you can help me out. I don't enter numbers on most of this, but so fuel and parts is gas and vehicle parts, right?
So the vehicles on the other tab, are you saying that's duplicate?
So,
jumped from
so
this
they're two
one.
different funds, and so the expenses we have to account for in the general fund. And what happens is those monies are transferred into the police motor pool fund. And so now we have to expense it here too. So it looks like we're double,
Okay.
but we're not. It's just, think of them as like two different businesses,
So we
right?
just look at one place and we're okay.
So police is paying for the motor pool over here. So now we're gonna talk about what we do in motor pool.
Can you help us out with depreciation?
No.
Okay.
I can help you out, chief.
No.
Chief, you want me to help you out with that depreciation?
Oh, there's the expert right there, yeah.
Right?
This is an area that's been kind of unique to the city. Before, there were no funds being accumulated to rotate and buy police cars. It just came directly out of the general fund if there happened to be excess money there to buy police cars. What would happen is, in previous accounting, before Jamie took over, is they'd write the depreciation number, then they'd create a fictitious income. I hate to use the word fictitious, but I don't know what else to use. That would say, here's the revenue, here's the expense, it just offsets each other. Well, you can't create fictitious revenue. So the poor chief has been stuck with this catch-up. It was 110,000 last year, I think. If you buy 4 police cars every 5 years, I mean, every year, rotating, every 5 years to get 20 cars, it's about $200,000 a year. So we're trying to accumulate the money to have available when the police cars come up. So for the last 2 years, basically the chief's been being hit with this additional expense in his department because it was never allocated there before because of this fictitious revenue creation. I almost hate to use that word, but probably as descriptive as one can get. So we're attempting, simple math in my mind, 20 police cars, 5-year life, 4 police cars a year, about $50,000 a pop. So we're just accumulating the money to make sure we can rotate those police cars. This resulted, frankly, in a significant part of the property tax increases we've experienced over the last couple of years. Because when you create a fictitious revenue account, you don't have to get it anywhere else, right? When you don't have a fictitious revenue account, you got to get it somewhere. This is a major contributor to what's happened to property tax increases right here.
Because we're, shall we say, playing catch up from the past. Lack of diligence.
I believe the motor pool had about 0 cash, didn't it, Jamie?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Because there was no money going in there. It was just this paper account. So yes, it's basically catch up, but we're looking more proactively going instead of retrospectively, we're going prospective to make sure that we don't have that problem when somebody has to catch up that situation.
So with Parks and Rec, the vehicles that they have, we ended up, we're basically leasing them, turning them back in every couple of years.
Yearly.
Yearly, okay. Is there any kind of setup we can get for that for police cars?
We've looked into it.
Is it even possible or?
Very, a little unique because of the.
Yeah.
After it gets used, equipment gets attached, it has a lot of holes in it. Doesn't, anyway, the
High performance engine.
the buyback thing, they kind of want to get a car back or they're anticipating they're gonna buy a car back. Not a whole lot different than the one they gave you a year ago, and ours would be. Also, when we turn a car around, there's about a 1 month lag. You have to take your car and uninstall. And then you have to do the install. So we have about a 1 month time frame. So when we're talking about, turning a car over once a year, 1/12 of that time, it's out of service. It makes a lot more sense. When I crunch the numbers, the difference between a lease and we own the asset and actually get to sell it and get some revenue at the end. But if it wasn't even leaning a little towards ownership being more favorable, it was really close. And just the benefit to the staff to not have to for them to move cars. It's like, I don't know how many of you work out of an office, but if you have to change offices once a year, find that not so fun. So, not to ask them to do that once a year and then have to have it 1 month with or without an office. So it just doesn't fit our system.
I should look into it.
And to be fair to chief, it's actually moving it 3 times because they have to move out of their vehicle into a temporary one, and then from that temporary one into the new one. So it's really like moving your office 3 times in a year. So,
And don't you have to set up the cars with everything? And so if you did that every year, that would be a much higher expense, wouldn't it? You set up a new car every
It would
year?
cause more wear and tear on the equipment. Some equipment, is models, well, a lot of the equipment is model specific. So one little change in the model of the vehicle, whether it's the width of the seat or the floorboard or that equipment's obsolete, so we're buying more equipment. Well, just into the numbers. So we are rotating our vehicles about every 6 years. The way it's working out now, our goal was 5. And why 5 is just because we're getting out of the warranty period. Cars are starting to get around 70, 80,000 miles on them. Things just start happening. So we definitely want to make sure our people are in a reliable piece of equipment for what they're doing. So this year, 2 marked patrol vehicles, and then the equipment and the installs for that equipment. 1 community service officer vehicle and 1 unmarked police vehicle, which is a detective or administrator.
Which is mine, right?
Mhm.
It's mine for this year. right?
Yes. Oh, I didn't tell you guys. We're gonna swear Randy in after this.
It's our new SWAT team.
Code enforcement
Oh, you know, you
officer.
have to. Right? That's why I always want to
There you
get
go.
it.
You take volunteers.
Of course. They don't last very long.
Let the dog shoot and go through taser training first.
That next account, I'm not sure what that is, Jamie.
So it's the motor pool use. So we have our motor pool department and the police department uses about 30% of those resources. And so that's the cost there. So that would cover their salaries, their, tool use, things like that over there at the mechanic shop over there.
So that's maintenance,
That's
basically.
maintenance, yeah. That's
And
they go through a lot of
personnel
wear and
maintenance.
tear on those vehicles. They do them up pretty good.
What, if you turn in a resell a police vehicle, is there some other broker that does that? You just like turn it over to a salvage place, or how do you, and what kind of funds do you recoup on a 6-year-old patrol car?
Broker Hines over there can probably answer that question for us, because the last one we sold was a Tahoe. Or
We
sold
one Explorer.
Yeah.
what did we sell that last silver off for?
Say about 8,500.
It's not, that's better than I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, after 5 years, and they're obviously not a police car, I mean, it's not. But people have use for something that, I don't know, they're throwing a snowplow on it and on their back 40 or what they're doing. And we've been doing okay. Revenue wise, our sales recently.
So Jamie, the depreciation and capital equipment, you're trying to get those equal.
Yeah, we're trying to build that up so that the reserve is there, so that
It's
when we
just-
do the turnover. Do the turnover, the 4 years, 4 to 5 years,
You're basically paying for it.
yes.
Any other questions?
But does that go, I mean, that goes in the same account that the resale would go into, right? So the 200,000 depreciation plus whatever you sold it for is your working fund for new vehicles.
Yeah,
think-
because the vehicle costs have gone up, they go up every year, and then they install and all that too, so. trying to capture all of that.
Do you know off the top of your head, what's our revenue from vehicle sales this year?
I don't know that.
I think it was 55 is where we're at this budget year. I'm pretty sure I looked at that today.
Okay.
Which sounds about right.
That 4 vehicles or 5?
That's fine.
I'm going to borrow a phrase that I've heard the mayor use frequently. Here we go. I'd like to hear a motion that we take a bio break for 10 minutes. Anybody second that?
Second.
Are we done with police?
I say, we've been here for an hour and a half, and my body's telling me we need to take a little break.
What's left on the agenda?
All these other parks, right?
Lots of them.
D through I.
Can we, is it? What's the quitting time? We're done.
Well, it's before 6, because.
I would imagine the
Just
next
like
ones will go a little faster.
Yeah.
That is a lot of material.
I can be voted down.
No, no.
Nobody needs a
I'm
bio
good with
break.
that.
So let's excuse the
Seconded,
chief. then.
all in favor, aye.
Okay, back here at 4:45. Oh, I said 4:45 to meet back here, but if everybody's here, I don't see why we should delay. Okay, rock and roll. Parks.
Parks. So park maintenance has been moved over to Public Works in this last year, so I'll do the presentation. Jamie is our park supervisor, takes over the maintenance. So I might lean on him. on a lot of this. I'm Dave Espinosa.
Just checking my memory.
Your name is Jamie or JD?
Jamie.
Jamie, I'm sorry. I
Jamie
heard that
Gill.
wrong.
Jill, correct.
So yeah, we can go through these. The uniform allowances went up just a little bit. That's based on the boots. With parks coming over to Public Works, it's just a little bit different clothing wear that they have to wear for Public Works compared to what they were doing at parks. And a lot of that's just because there was some cross training, right? We talked about that a little bit last week, but the parks help us out in stormwater and water and sewer, and we do the same thing with parks now. So there's it's just a little bit of cross, so that's where that money went. Subscriptions and memberships, that huge increase is just because we were moving. A lot of that was in travel and training. Travel and training also went up, but there's an explanation for that too. So most of this money was in travel and training. We just put it to where it really needs to go. So there's a lot of acronyms. Jamie knows them all, but a lot of them are just, it's different things. Like you got the CIT, it's certified irrigation, right? So each one of those is a certificate that we need to hold for parks. Some of it's for playground safety, some of it's for irrigation, mowing, arborists.
Culinary water auditors.
Yeah.
Sports fields. Yep.
Yeah, sports fields, taking care of sports fields to make sure that they're in proper shape so that when kids are playing on them, that they don't have any problems there. So that's where most of those are. They're tied to some kind of association, and then there's a certification that goes along with each one of them that we've kind of got spread out among our employees. Now that's where the travel and training comes in. Is last year at the same time in parks maintenance, we have one person that's still in parks maintenance. We've had a big shift. When they came over, there was some moving around. A lot of those employees are actually still with the city. They just, one went to sewer, one went to stormwater. So I mean, so people have moved around. We've actually kept most of those people. It's just been the shakeup, right? And so the people that are in parks now, we just don't have them certified in some of these places. And so that travel and training number that you see there with the $8,200, that's probably, it's going to be a one-time thing. I mean, it'll probably come back down to be a lot more manageable. Just right now, we just got to get a lot of guys certified in a lot of different areas to make sure that we're doing.
Just a quick question. So does the city kind of encourage, what I want to say, cross-pollination?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You want to get as people as familiar with as much as possible, so that in the event you need a backup. Okay.
Yep. And I mean, and it's really been very beneficial for Public Works in that way that, we have guys that can be on call in almost any of those realms and have some kind of idea of what's going on the other parts of maintenance in our city. So it's been a really big thing. Office supplies, just your normal office supplies. The motor pool, this is the biggest part of that increase is the big mower that you see there. What we're trying to do this year, we did the presentation. We talked about it a little bit in Fleet's presentation at last council meeting. But what we're thinking there is right now we have two smaller mowers and then a crew that goes with them. All those guys go together. They're all like one group, right? And so they go to a park. Sometimes you've got the stick edgers and the weed eaters and the blowers. All those guys are kind of waiting on the two mowers, right? Or vice versa, the two mowers are waiting on the other people to get some of this other stuff done. And if we go to one of these bigger game mowers, it's a John Deere. that we'll be able to send that person off by themselves. They're on a big mower, they can go hit all of that big area. And we're not having to kind of wait on each other. But the small equipment people can do the small equipment stuff, do some of the, and they can move on to the next one, or vice versa. If the mowers, if the mower beats them out, then they don't have to do that. The other big thing about the big mower is it's going to take 2 employees. We've had a very hard time getting seasonal employees in these positions like this for the parks. And so we'll be able to fit, put 1 person instead of having 2 people with the other mowers. So we're saving ourselves there a lot with that as well.
Is there a safety concern regulation that we are allowing 1 person to operate a big piece of equipment like that all by themselves?
No, because they don't get off the mower. So, I mean, and if they do, then there's kill switches and different others and safety instruments too, if they had to get off the mower by themselves. But in that case, no, they can go to the park and they will be followed up by the other group. It's just not gonna be this, here, let's sit and wait while the other ones finish doing their job. And there's just some stagnant time there.
So the big mower can be driven from park to park
Yeah, it
on
is.
the streets
Yep,
where the
yep.
smaller mowers cannot.
Oh, it's street legal.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
that's
it's
where
big.
the time savings is. It doesn't have to be trailers
Yeah.
I
waiting
see.
for the other crew.
Yeah. So
That
Well,
person
that's a
shows
good-
up, he mows or she mows and runs off and mows the next park and runs down and mows the next park while the fine crew is doing the weed eating and all of that kind of good stuff that mower doesn't have to wait on.
Street legal lawnmower.
You're gonna be certified, Councilmember Swanson? Or you mow a few lawns?
Hey, I'm certified on the big mowers we have now. I'm happy to certify on that one.
I just want to mow 35 miles an hour.
Hey, we can get it in the Cherry Days parade, I'll bet you.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, gee, I can see it now.
Fuel parts is just that fuel parts.
Just a
That's-
real quick question on the fuel. Has the city got like a centralized area where you all fuel up?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, so
It's not like a
No, so-
gas card and.
Yes, we do that too. So
Okay.
most of our vehicles are on Mavericks gas card. We monitor all that. They have certain pins that they have to use. It has to match mileage. If it doesn't, it actually will throw me and Tyrell the fleet. They'll throw us a flag saying, hey, like these didn't match up. You have to have a certain pin. The pin is correlated with the person.
Do you know if there would be any kind of cost saving if there was a centralized?
So we used to have that.
You
We
used to have that,
actually,
okay.
so we get, it's almost the exact same price, except for we feel like we have more controls at Maverick because there is those things in place. Where ours was at our shop, I mean, you still had to use the card and those kind of things, but a lot of the alarms were after, the fact, like when we ran a report, right?
Okay.
So we still do have those ones, and that's for our snow, so we have it for our big snowplow trucks. So one of the tanks is for our diesel,
Yeah.
big snowplow trucks. And the other tank is ethanol free, which is what they do fill up all of their readers with, all the gas cans, all that stuff, and we run all of our equipment off of that other tank. So we utilize both.
Got it. And ethanol free, I'm sure there's gonna be saving some maintenance costs, especially carbureted vehicles.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's really made a huge difference, like going and doing some of our maintenance, like it's made a huge difference, like how much they're already ready to roll and so, yep. Then we got computer services, that's sports sites, it's for our recreation department, for signups.
I'm,
And some of our
Sales,
reservation rates. So that's what that is for. Yeah, park vouchers as well. Equipment maintenance, this is just our normal equipment maintenance for any of our stuff. You can see the trimmers, the chainsaws, all of that kind of stuff. Building maintenance, that 11,000 takes care of all of our park bathrooms, batteries, even like some of the bleachers and those kind of things, right? Anything that's with the builds.
That's repairs plus supplies.
The building maintenance and supplies?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
That also
There's a lot of
handles all the
things.
vandalism we've got, right?
What's that?
Takes care of all the vandalism.
A
we've been
lot of
having
it.
in
So
the
we do
city.
have some that are tied to vandalism, but that's to make sure that it's secure and ready to go. So when somebody does.
What's the colonial flag?
That's our, that's who we use for city
The
flags.
mayor, the mayor's flag, the big huge one, or just
No, no, no.
all flags
All
in
the
general?
flags.
No, all of our flags are serviced through that company.
And Parks handles that.
The big giant flags are not a city asset. They
There's no
belong to
charge.
a private
There's no charge.
a nonprofit foundation.
There is.
It's
it's
The city,
part
the
of
city
it.
doesn't have any
Yeah.
part of
Neither the flag nor the putting up and taking down.
that.
Everything's
No,
totally.
that's all private.
Cool.
The telephones, there's a big decrease there. Most of that was because of utilities. So we used to have telephones and all of the utilities in there, right? For
Yes.
Bathrooms, the parks building.
So all the utilities, yeah, for all of that, we moved that into buildings and grounds.
The Pine, yeah, yes. The Pineview water assessment is just that. It's us paying for our water for all parks. that we-
Is different, is it like Mountain View irrigation?
Oh, the irrigation
Yeah.
association, I think it's.
No, this one, the $4,000.
Well, then,
Oh, yearly irrigation fees.
Yeah.
Oh, that's to Rainbird for all our sprinkler clocks
Oh,
and smart
okay.
clocks and stuff like that, so the software for that.
So that's a software?
Yeah, so that's why it's up with subscriptions and memberships.
Okay.
Software to control spring. Okay, this-
So we can turn it off with our,
So-
yes, so we can turn it off with our phones, make sure, or, you know, if we know if there's a rain, it would take us hours to go around and turn off each of the clocks, right?
So it's like remote controls.
Yes, basically.
We can do it from a computer, our desktop, our iPads, our phones, and shut things down and change things.
Just professional services.
What do you get donations for?
So the donations of 20,000 there, it was the holding spot for the charities, right?
that or charities and other donations, there has been times where we got big donations for parks, but we haven't in a while.
Advertise.
Did I- Yeah.
Then which line?
That was.
Donations contingent toward the money.
So I have a question. Is that where we will see if we get donations for that? The lights and the sound, will we see it in here? The 75 that?
No, so these are expenses. So that would come in as revenue and then that would be in the revenue part.
Okay.
We haven't got to that yet, right?
Field maintenance, the top dressing is just taking, it's the surface treatment you put on any of the ball fields or any of that kind of stuff. And then the aerating, that's just for all of our fields. Mostly our sports fields, right? To make sure that they in a position to be able to be played on, that there's not big mounds and different things.
Does that include the,
Yes.
does that include the recreation, excuse me, the retention ponds or the double as soccer fields?
Yeah, so it's some of them we do, it just depends on which ones. Most of this is built in for like Oakland for the football field, right?
Yeah.
Those baseball fields there, the baseball fields here at North Ogden Park, there's a couple at Lone View. Most of those are the baseball fields and then the football field up there. A lot of the soccer fields, I mean, if we really needed to, we could probably do it. We were having concerns, but the soccer is done mostly through SWAT here in North Ogden, so, which is a private company that just rents our facility.
And the retention ponds, that's their main function. We just happen to play soccer on them as a side benefit.
Absolutely.
Whereas the baseball and football fields, that's their.
That's their main. Chemicals, so chemicals is just that, all the fertilizer, pesticides, and herbicides, any of our grass seed that we need to do, anything from spraying weeds to making sure the grass is green and rejuvenated. So that's kind of what happened right there.
And we're not having the plants hanging
The,
this year, correct?
the boulevard flowers, we are not doing
That
those.
was,
So what's the flower pot chemicals?
So there are,
We do have like flower pots out here in City Hall.
That are kind of like
The
the.
business ones that signed up forever ago, that if they bought one of the planters with the North Ogden City logo,
we put it in the first time and we fertilize that, basically that first go around, and then after that, they kind of maintain theirs.
$10,000 increase. It says chemical storage. Explain that one. Shortage?
Shortage.
Oh, sure. Okay. Is it light or what?
I know when I went into AFA to buy some ammonium sulfate, I almost fell off my
It's
tractor.
almost double, but almost every chemical out there. Irrigation supplies, I think that it's sprinkler heads, kind of repair parts that we need. Department supplies, if we need anything from rakes, shovels. Tools for what they need to work on all the irrigation systems or. The forestry stuff is, removing trees if we need to. Rejuvenating flower beds, those kind of
I
things.
mean, buying trees, if we do like a Tree CD USA for Arbor Day, so getting trees and stuff for that sort of event.
$1,000 for vandalism. We keep our fingers crossed every day that
So does that cover it?
that covers one time.
Right.
Depends on.
Yeah, unless it was pleasantly last week, because that one was probably at least a $5,000. Yeah, I don't even know what park it was at, but it literally was the first day it was open. They broke all the sinks off the wall, and the toilets.
Can we do metal sinks and toilets in the
We're
restrooms?
definitely going
Park the
to,
drone over.
going to,
That's a
So we
shame.
didn't, flock, whatever.
Playground maintenance is the wood chip, so we have to have a certain wood chip. We can't just put any wood chip on the playground. So that's for that. And then just repairing the playground itself, right? If there's, if the slide breaks or if there gets a crack in any of the, that's to do that. Restroom renovation is kind of exactly what you talked about. Preparing ourselves to, like, instead of just waiting for somebody to come and break a toilet, we've started to put some money towards, like, okay, let's go to a stainless toilet, let's go to a stainless sink. That we can't do the things they used to be able to do. That's where that comes in. The restroom rentals, that is the honey buckets, right? Like, so when we are out of season, we put some honey buckets in certain places so people can still use the restroom, because sometimes our parks are open longer than we can keep the restrooms open just because of the water and different things. And freezing, cotton damage that way, so. Rental equipment, just trenchers, barriers, stump grinders, any of that kind of stuff. Christmas decorations, that's for our North Pole area.
Is it LED or not?
Yes. They're all LED now, right?
Yeah.
So it's not classified, that basically takes up most of it with drug testing and physical. Small equipment. Where we just have, yeah, shovels, wrenches, those kind of things, the weed eaters, the leaf blowers, and then a shop cabinet, which will hold some of our tools and those things. They're lockable cabinets, so. Any questions? Kind of quick, but.
Are you gonna be covering any of these other areas?
No, Justin's gonna do those ones.
I have a question for you. And I would ask this question of every single person that presents to me. Are there cost saving ideas that maybe your employees or even yourself have, that you, maybe a suggestion box type thing that you could share with us?
So
Kind of,
We can take that.
there's a couple things that so it's been actually nice, because right, like I said, there's only one person that was in there last year that's still there, right? So there's kind of this rejuvenation, and so that's where the big mower the big mower idea came from. It was somebody came in and said, hey, like, I think we could be more effective if we do this. There's been ideas of doing some zero skate in some of the park strips in the parks, right? That would cut way down on some of the weed eating and stick edging that we have to do ourselves, as well as a lot of our park strips are very old sprinklers. Like, I'll give you McGriff, for instance, like, they still have the brass heads. Like,
Yeah.
it's the old grass. Yes, up there at McGriff Park, right? Like, so there's been ideas to do something like that.
And conserves water as
Yes,
well.
absolutely. There was an idea that we need to do a connection at McGriff Park, actually. Maybe we look at doing some kind of zero skate path, and we can go after some kind of grant money to say, hey, if you're looking for ideas for zero skate, maybe you can come up here, and we might have a couple different options on that little path that ties in the actual walking trail to the park playground. So there's been stuff like that. I know these guys have thought of a million other things. But it's been nice, because we had that kind of that mix up a little bit, so we're
got fresh ideas.
yeah, fresh
Fresh
ideas.
pair of eyes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the whole purpose of this group too, so fresh pair of eyes.
Do you have like is there an employee incentive for employees to come forward with ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. Gone in the past, and the council's been very supportive. If somebody comes up with a really good idea, I mean, I know they've done stuff from, and Katie did her, gift cards, those kind of things, like that's where some of that comes from. And to all the way, like at our Christmas party, they talked about that peak award. That's from those people, right? Like somebody that came up with something that saved the city, a bunch of money. That's where that peak award is kind of derives from. So, yeah.
So the peak award itself was an idea that somebody came up with.
Yeah, that too. And then the
You're
peak
saying
award
the peak award is an
for,
incentive to come up with more ideas.
yes, that too. Anything else?
I do have a question. I don't know if it fits for you or Jamie, but I've noticed there's sports site software is on, I think, 4 different budgets. So you've just taken like the 6,000 and divided it between, okay, great, thank you.
Cool. Another question. And I admit that this is one of my pet peeves, but I think it's applicable, and that is graffiti removal. An example, there was a street sign on our street where we live that was tagged, and it ticked me off so much. It was a metal sign. I didn't ask anybody's permission. I took my carburetor cleaner and I went out and I cleaned it off the backside. Didn't hurt it at all. And I called the city. I said, "This is what I've done. Hope that's okay with you." But so the reason I'm bringing that up is not to just pat myself on the back, but what about the idea of? I'm sure it costs $1,000. Is that just for supplies, or is that for labor as well?
No, it's just for supplies.
And I'm sure there is a cost associated with somebody going and doing the work as well, somebody's job.
Yeah.
What about the idea of using volunteers to
We would love
remove?
volunteers anytime that would want to come over for meetings. It's just getting volunteers
To volunteer?
to volunteer.
Maybe.
Well,
people
have
don't know that
Sandblaster will travel.
Well, I haven't Well, I take that back. I did do another one in Ogden City where somebody had put up some very bad stuff. My wife and I went and took care of it. But
And we do get some, like, we get a lot of Boy Scout groups and those kind of things that are like, hey, you have something, and if we have some kind of graffiti or something going, it's like, we've had that in the past where we'll have a group come out and they'll either paint, they can paint over something or they're.
clean it off a little bit.
Mhm.
And
So, I mean, we've had that,
and it's something that we want to take care of rather quickly.
yes.
Right.
So,
So we don't usually have like, volunteers on standby where it's like, hey, we need to get this removed. And like you said, sometimes it's very crude in what they put. And so we just need to get out there and get it removed right away. So.
Maybe I'll chew on that some more, but that might be an area in which we could help. We, meaning the citizens, if we knew that that was available, and if you could give us maybe some training, say this type of stuff, use this chemical, this brush, whatever, so we don't go and ruin the sign trying to clean it off. Damage the brick. So maybe we could kind of work together on that. Just my thanks.
And most of his vandalism, we're talking about this, is just in the parks, right? Jamie's not worried about street signs unless you send them out. but
Yeah.
that's- Yeah.
Yeah, no, most of it's on the walls of bathrooms.
Thank you.
I didn't know.
Oh, no.
I've been
volunteering.
Sorry. Well, John will help.
Okay, so next is recreation.
Thank you.
It's coming. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
You can do this one, John.
Sure. So Justin and I'll tag team on this one a bit.
Where do you want me, up, down here?
Yep.
Okay.
What's your last name, Justin?
Rasmussen.
We are in recreation.
Yep.
Just the next one.
So a lot of these things are things that we've talked about that are the same for uniforms, printing, travel and training, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to skip down to the stuff that's a little more unique. We did talk about sports sites, as was mentioned, that's shared across several departments. The department, they do have paint and chalk and things that they use to mark fields. They do put on some races and other community programs. These monies sometimes are expended like through Cherry Days or through our events individual, that outside person we're using for events we'll talk about in a few minutes. But the idea is that this is where some of the expenses come out. As you get into the individual programs.
Okay, wait a minute.
Yep.
Summer camps. Why are we not having any summer camps?
so I don't know that there was a plan to have a summer camp this year. And so we took it out.
So those were in part coordinated by the events coordinator position.
Okay.
And so we still do, Becca, I believe, is evaluating those, but I'm not aware that we're at least doing as many as we had done in the past because of that.
I don't think she's gonna do the, like the theater one, but she still was asking for the kids camp. But I don't know, I mean, that's where we were wondering if that goes in advance or stays with her, so. She's still with that.
Yeah.
Great question.
So baseball, this is salaries for the umpires as well as the equipment that we purchased, the baseball hats and things like that we give out to each of the coaches. Hats, baseball helmets, but it does include the uniforms. So the uniforms are bought through these lines, and then when the parents sign their kids up, they pay us back for the uniforms. And in theory, each of these programs pays for itself if you eliminate the salary that it costs for the recreation coordinator. So football, baseball, all of them the parents and the people that are signing up are covering the expense. They're just not covering the expense of the person who's coordinating everything.
So these expenses, and this is a question I was going to ask, these expenses that are listed here, they're in the revenue side of things, the income. We expect people to pay for their own uniforms. So this is just showing where it goes out.
Yeah, so like football, for
It's not
example,
really costing the city to run sports.
Except for the
Except for-
worker.
yeah. Yeah, so supplies and things don't cost the city any money. But and like football, I think actually last year made a little money. So a little bit of that did go to help cover the salaries and things. But with all of these, they basically cover all the equipment and the umpires' times and things like that. With that, and a good example is some of these programs like football, baseball that make a little money help cover the BCI testing. That's what we do for all the volunteers. They have to do drug tests and a background check so that we know the folks that we are putting around kids. And we do routinely deny people who've asked to volunteer to coach or do a thing. Even if they have the kid on the team, if they don't have the right background, they don't get to work with the kids. So that's pretty much it. They do have some equipment that rec uses that isn't being replaced. A good example is we have a 4-wheeler that they use to drag the fields that shows up as a motor pool expense. It's over there, but it's not needing to be replaced or things like that. So questions about recreation? And on this,
So the total department budget, you're saying that most of that is reimbursed through fees. Do we know how much? Is that plus or minus? And probably of that
So we're-
69,500, is there a little bit?
So we're saying about 60,000, so we're saying about 9,500 is not covered by
Not
that.
covered. Okay.
Are there any opportunities for cost savings that you can see in this? It doesn't look like a big hitter, you know. And there's a lot of benefit, you know.
so in this one, we've spent a lot of time talking about, are we charging enough for the programs? So
From a parent standpoint, yes.
so
But I get it, I get it.
Yeah, I agree, but we do have, we're right in line there, but we do have a huge waiting list. And why we aren't making more is because we don't have place to put more. We're using every space that we have, so.
I'm coming from doing it 20 years ago
Yeah,
to starting doing it
that's-
again now. And
yeah.
It was an increase.
yeah.
So could we use more space? Could we find more space? Maybe, I don't know, a
Building
vacant field
first.
that's vacant and just growing weeds.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's something that
That's not
definitely the city
necessarily-
has looked at looking at other properties and things like that, but right now we're built out.
If there's the need, you know, the demand, and supply and demand type.
And if it's gonna increase funds for the city, I mean, if you're saying football
But you're,
actually made a little bit, if you had more fields and made more,
but your problem is all the parks are used. And if you go into a field, in order to play football on, it's got to be mowed and lawned, and that's going to be a pretty big expense if it's not an organized park. You're just going into empty fields.
The
See what
one
I'm
thing
saying?
we've done too, sorry Brenda, is that John and myself met with the school district because there seems to be lots of basketball courts available that aren't being used 24 hours a day in the schools. So they've agreed to give us a little bit more access so that we can properly run our basketball, maybe even expand that a little bit. Because we're all paying taxes on that, right? So they've agreed to let us kind of expand our usage there a bit. So but it is hard to create, actual fields.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks for entertaining the question.
Is community events next or aquatic center?
Yes.
Is that the same two people?
Same two people.
Yep.
Stand up tremendously.
So this is one of those that the council is trying a new program this year. We used to have, so in 2012 or up to 2012, we had a events person. And then in 2012, we dropped that position.
20.
I was gonna say that.
No, so Lori Frazier used to be the events person for the city before she moved to the police department. Yeah, so then we dropped that position and we brought it back in like 2015 or 16 and then moved it back out with this last budget year. The idea being that maybe we could contract it out. And so that's what we've done. So the salary for this position is just a flat $25,000 fee that we pay. It's not showing up on here. I'm just trying to make sure you have the background.
Where would it be?
So it's
So it will be on there, just didn't look at the sheet.
Okay,
It's
but
a-
Yeah.
this is
It's a
where,
new account.
okay.
It's a new name.
yeah. But then all of the other expenses, the roughly $57,000 are other things that the city's doing that are, or not other things, but things that we were doing before, for example. The hard one about this one is this used to be called the Parks and Rec Admin Department. And so there's a little bit of carryover that we just might not have settled out all the way it needs to go. These subscriptions and memberships are things for, so when we play music, we have to pay a subscription fee to compensate the people who wrote the music and performed the music. Yeah, the royalties so like what the pool uses, Cherry Days, any music that we play, the ASCAP, CSAC, and the BMI covers almost every possible performer that's out there. AED is just the heart starter again. And then there are some travel and training and office supplies for flyers. When we get the word out to the kids about like North Pole and things like that, we print a lot of flyers. We do charge them a sports sites fee as well, because we use that for Cherry Days and for other things so people can register for events. Equipment maintenance. This is one of those that I think will be dropping out or moving over to parks or someplace where it belongs. But it would typically, if it stayed in here, would be for things like PA systems and stuff, keeping things running, keeping things going. But I don't see this year that we'll have a big expense. Telephone and utilities is one of those that we're going to move. Department supplies is decorations and things that we use for the events. So the ones that we're still doing are the Arbor Day, the Fright Night. Cherry Days is a different group, but it's still an event. North Pole, tree lighting, and the glow run that's in October. So that's a not a half marathon, it's a 5K in the dark in October. But so these are just expenses that are covering, and movies in the park. Most of the money that funds all those programs is coming out of the ramp money that we get from the county. Based on the number of residents, we get $1 for every resident from the county to put towards arts, recreation parks, things like that. Some of the things that have been there in the past, like the musical in the park, and things like that, we've taken out. We do still do some drug testing because we have volunteers that may interact with kids, and so we've left some money in there. And then as people sign up for things to be vendors, if they use credit cards or stuff, it's here. And we are, I think, planning on getting a new desktop. The one that the person we've contracted with, we've agreed to let them have a computer. And so this is one that they're using that needs to be replaced. So, yeah.
Can we go back to community garden? Is there not going to be one anymore because of the police station, or?
There is one to be planned over at Barker Park.
Okay.
But
Not this year?
it has not been installed and won't be installed this year.
What category was that under?
Community gardens.
Just what road?
650.
All right.
62,650.
Oh, thank you. If you don't mind me asking about the community band, which is number 420.
So
That's still going on.
yeah, so we typically apply for an easy grant with Ramp to pay for their music and some small equipment like music stands. We haven't heard back if we've been awarded that grant yet. But that's typically what this money would be, is it's more Ramp grant money coming from the county and not just coming out of city dollars.
So it's just not, it's just listed, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's listed as a 0 because you're not confident that you're going to get that grant.
Right. And it's one of those that we typically don't spend money if we don't get a grant for it.
So are those the ramp grants for the community band? Is that one that the city would have to put as much in also?
On the easy grants, we usually are able to match those with volunteer time. So the community band members do the volunteer time by not paying, we don't pay them to perform. And so that counts for the match. And any questions about events? Okay. Well, this is the one Justin knows everything about. And so Justin is now the supervisor for the groups of the things we just talked about, but it's only about 2 weeks old. And so I'm not throwing him to the wolves quite yet, but on Aquatic Center, he's been doing that for several years now. So he's on his own.
Let's throw him to the man.
Yeah.
Toss them in the deep end. So
I can
And-
take it. I'll take it.
he swims.
And then we do have planning commission starting at 6. So
Should we recommend an end time so that they can get in here and get set up? 15 minutes,
15 minutes is probably sufficient. Even 10 would probably be okay.
10 would be better.
Well, just,
Yeah, we can go. Yeah, we can go.
Go.
So this is the Aquatic Center. The first one is uniforms. This is to uniform about 80 part-time employees for the year, for the season. And then get them some jackets that would stay at the facility cold days like that. I know we have 0 on there right now, but that's something we want to look towards in the future. Subscription and membership, we talked about that with everybody else. Ours is soundtrack. That's the music that we play. They make sure that we're playing good, wholesome music that's not vulgar or obscene there at the pool. They kind of, we do have some country western and American Red Cross. We are an American Red Cross facility. We do all our training through American Red Cross, so we have to pay them a subscription to use their name, to use their brand, and to be able to train through them. So that's our lifeguarding, our WSI, our water safety instructors and things like that. Advertising, we do some events that that is more than the events that the city does. We do a flick and float, which is something that we watch a movie in the pool. We do a back to school stomp, which is a dance for the high school, junior high kids after hours. Safe Kids Day, things like that. So that's just things to advertise and get promotion. These are big events that we use to promote and help get us some staff for the next year.
Do they have good turnouts with it?
So the flick and float last year, we actually had to turn people away. We had over 800 people.
Right.
So it was a great success. In fact, it's almost a little scary for the lifeguards, but we make it work. We'll make sure we only do enough that we feel comfortable with. So yeah, some of those are great successes. Travel and training. This is lifeguard class. At North Shore, we put on 1 or 2 lifeguard classes a year. It's usually in the spring. So I just finished up doing a lifeguard class. We actually offer this to anyone that wants to become an American Red Cross lifeguard. They pay in. We teach the class, and then if they pass it, we usually give them a conditional offer if they can pass the background check, drug testing like that. So it's a great way for us to get lifeguards on chair for us. So We've done one this year. We had 23 in that class, and then we'll have to probably do one more right before we start, which will have probably another 10 kids in there because we're running about 60 lifeguards down there every year.
Are you still having a lot of interest lifeguard wise?
Uh,
Or are you kind of,
It's getting better. There during COVID and things like that, it went down. And then since we didn't have a lot, we have about half returners. So when half was less than half before, but we're getting there. We have a lot of cashier interest, a lot of grounds interest. The lifeguarding is something that it's hard to have 15-year-old kids pay $200 to get certified to come and work for so much money. But yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. It's a fun place to work. And so that's the benefit. Employee retention, we do employee, it's a great training for my lifeguards in the wintertime. I'll go down to the Box Elder Natatorium. We will do, we'll have a party or a training there that'll train my guards in the wintertime to keep them current on their certs so they can come back. But at that same time, I say, bring your friends, let's get your friends signed up. We got a class coming, so that's what we use. We use the natatorium down at Box Elder. They don't charge us much, so usually about $300 is cookies and drinks for everyone. Things like that, so we can get a staff the next year. The conference is for 2 employees. We send down an assistant manager or myself. We go down in Provo. It looks like last year. It's a week-long conference about aquatics, recreation, events, things like that. Paper supplies, paper products, that's for the office. We do a lot of printing. We do a lot of swim lesson cards, printing them out to the parents, banners, anything we need to do to advertise for or to get out for people so they know our events and things like that. Computer.
That's different than the advertising and promotion.
Yeah, so advertising and promotion, a lot of times we'll get banners for fence. We're promoting, another thing is we'll advertise or promote. We're headed to Safe Kids Fair this weekend. So that's something that we would buy into so they can come and we can advertise our swim lessons, water safety, things like that. It's just important to be down there with the kids. Sports sites, we pay our dues there too. That's our point of sales up front. And so that's how we use up for all our transactions. Computer services, a lot of times we have quite a few computers down there. So we just need to make sure that's for printers and things like that. Building maintenance is a big one. Locker rooms, we get hit with the vandalism just like the parks do. We have a great facility guy, Ken Young, that takes care of us there, and then regular maintenance. So he makes sure that our facility stays safe, clean, and fun. And then the AED, professional and technical services, that's the AED. That's we want to make sure we have an AED on site all the time. We pay Weaver County to come in, the health department. They come in once a month and check our water. We have to pay that much just to be open. So Mountain Alarm, that's something that'll probably go away, or it'll be a name change to something else. We have a different alarm system. We are actually on the same cameras as the police now. And so we pull up our cameras and things like that. So even though it says Mountain Alarm, it's just a different name.
Can you skip over?
Yeah,
telephone?
Oh, telephone utilities, sorry. Garbage pickup.
65.
That's just garbage.
No, but
No.
it's telephone
Okay.
utilities, garbage,
Yeah.
it's all of it.
I was gonna say, that's a lot of garbage.
There is a lot of garbage. There is a lot of garbage. Yeah, does that include heating on that one?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we're
Electricity?
electricity and heating. Yeah, we're running it for those 3 months down there. It's quite expensive.
So is there gas, water heaters? So you got electricity, gas, and telephone plus garbage.
Yeah.
Just not broken out.
3 months, huh?
And yeah, I can tell you more. It's expensive to run a pool, but it's well worth it. We love it. Here's the other one. Chemicals. chlorine and acid. Just like any other chemical, the price is going up and the demand is hard to get. We've been lucky to be able to continue to get ours, and we're hoping this year will be the exact same, but that's something that's costly. Departmental supplies, that's lifeguard equipment, that's their safety equipment, so that doesn't count their uniform, but this counts their whistles, water bottles, lanyards, hip packs, rescue tubes, things like that. So to be able to make their job, so they can function at their job. It also covers the flick and flow. We have $400, so that we usually that $400 goes right to pay for the rights to the movie. About that, go that night. The stomp, usually half that is for decorations and the other half is to pay for the DJ. So we do make a little bit of money on both those events, but we still have to pay a little bit coming out. Swim lessons, supplies, that would be something, things that we need: clipboards, we need rash guards for our swim teachers, swim carts, toys, things like that for the little ones. But that's just supplies. Also some of the paper products. We have a safety school now that helps with the safety school and our safety program there. Retail sales, these are things that we buy up front and then sell back. We have swim diapers, plastic pants, goggles, sunscreen, locks, lanyards, and the flick and flow in events. Then the pool maintenance, everything always needs to be maintained. We want to make sure that we're keeping it up. So we're this year we were able to get in and do a floor in the women's locker room, and it looks like this year we want to get some more. We were able to get umbrellas and some chase recliners. We want to get some more. We're always just on a rotating thing. We'll take out the bad ones, put the new ones in. Small equipment, small tools and stuff like drills, pressure washers, things like that. Those are things that we're always needing at the pool. Our maintenance guy is really good at being able to be frugal, but there's things that we do need once in a while. And then we've got 2 new computers, so we try to rotate 2 computers out of our system down there every year. I think we have about a half dozen computers. That'd be the cashiers and stuff like that. We have an outdoor tablet that we use to check people in and out at the outside table. And then the UV treatment system, that's just the repair and upkeep of that. And then replace the big, the large slide. Which one's that one? Is that the blue one? Is that to resurface it? Okay.
Is it the slide or is
Yeah.
it the cover?
Yeah, that's yeah.
So, yeah. So we're looking at, we need to resurface the big blue slide. And go ahead.
Can that be taken from the RDA budget?
So, yes, there is a transfer from the RDA into the aquatic center. Budgeted for the aquatic center
Offset the
to offset
the revenue stream.
I guess a question on all this is, so how much did the pool make last year relative to how much went?
So if you include the RDA transfer of $33,000, they broke even.
It broke
Well,
even.
that's money injected into it.
Wow.
not people paying.
So they came close. It was in the hole about 33,000 on their own,
What's
which I
the,
think is quite the improvement. The last 2 years has been really good years for the aquatic center.
What
Obviously-
made the difference then in the?
I think it's the
revenue?
weather.
And we raised entry fees.
We did raise them a little bit, but I think it's just the weather really. I think
there's
it's
more
just-
people out.
Does that have
Double up on
anything to
the
do with
Bowery
reducing the
reservations, right, doing 2 in evening
No.
instead of 1.
So what I really I credit it to is COVID.
Yeah.
We were able to stay open because of council's decision and things like that. We were able to stay open and stay safe during COVID. And that gave us a large, then we were the only ones open. So people traveled to us and now we have people now really like our pool. And so now they're coming back. So I think that's a lot to do with it. We did do some reservation changes. Now we're doing double the reservation. That helps. But a lot of it is COVID. We were able to stay open and that had a lot to do with COVID.
Do you guys have time, it's either during the morning or in the evening, or the larger pool, you leave open for lane swimming?
So we have laps, every day we have lap swimming from, it's not that time, so I'm not even thinking, but in the morning we do for an hour.
Okay.
And then in the afternoon, right, when we open from noon to 1, there's lap swimming available. One there's public swimming, then you pull the lanes out and go. And then at night, Monday and Wednesday, there's lap swimming.
Is it possible to open that up to more accessible, or so you said like on the Wednesday, is there a way to open that up 5 days a week or anything like that, to maybe more money or?
Well, lap swimming is definitely not a money maker.
Okay.
Lap swimming is, we've got 10 people coming for an hour and they're paying $3.50. When I can put in a reservation of 200 and for an hour and a half and make the same amount or more. Or actually I can make $300.
Yeah.
I can pay for my staff.
Okay.
So it would actually be more beneficial to take lap swimming out and say, let's offer reservations Monday and Wednesday. Now, I'm not saying that because my dog would kill me that they would now have to all work longer, but I'm telling you the secrets.
Well, I was gonna ask, I was gonna ask.
Oh, I'm just, he's talking about at night.
Oh,
If you had more Bowery space, could you have more reservations and would, because our families rented it. But man, it was like, we had the run of the whole place, and there were lifeguards everywhere. And I thought they could put in a lot more people here if they had.
So the way the reservations work, I can put 800 people in. 800 people is 4 groups, so I can do it in groups of 200. The first 2 groups get the Boweries. The next 2 groups that come in, if I do all groups of 200, I would let you come in, but you have to either bring a pop-up and your tables, and you're welcome to do that.
I'm just wondering if you build a couple more Boweries, if they pay for themselves in the reservations.
It definitely couldn't hurt, but we're pretty booked on reservations anyway. We only have onesie twosies left. The ones that are actually not booking are the later ones. But yeah.
I'm afraid I gotta be the bad guy.
Okay.
Time.
That's what I get paid for.
Big bucks.
There are 2 spots left, H and I. Can I suggest that since the presenters for those are going to be 2 people who are going to be here anyway, we don't have to call a special person in, that maybe we just shift them to the next meeting and vacate the premises.
Yeah, we gotta add judicial, because that's something we skipped.
Judicial.
Yep.
I didn't.
It-
add
it didn't get on
that.
It didn't get on. It's been in the whole thing, but
Okay, so
I've been trying.
anyway, we need to
add it
adjourn.
Let me say it.
at another meeting.
So if that's all right, let's just chop it off here. But what's left next time, sorry, guys, and we do need to have our after discussion. Maybe we could just do that out in the hall and vacate the room for that purpose. If that's all right
Who
with
do
you.
we have at our next meeting?
John, can you answer that?
So we'll bring back judicial, which will be me. And then Jamie and I can talk about the non-departmental and the building and grounds. And then there's just going to be question strategies from this group. One thing we've talked about is what projects or what things do you feel like there should be a change in? Because that's going to be the biggest dramatic thing that can help the budget if the goal is to tweak and find more money.
So we don't have another 10 item for
Nope.
next time. Okay. that
Nope.
was-
It's fairly short, and we can spend a lot of time talking about what we can this group do, what kind of cost savings can we suggest. Okay, so
I agree with you, Ann. then.
So do I hear a motion
motion
to
to adjourn.
adjourn?
Second.
So moved, so be it. So let it be.